That Hollywood superstar Tom Cruise isn't just breaking box office records, he's also left a trail of devastation in the lives of his ex-wife, Katie Holmes, and their daughter, Suri. What began as Holmes's teenage dream of love quickly spiraled into a nightmare. Now, she's finally speaking out, revealing the darkest truth about Cruise, a ruthless manipulator who sacrificed his own family for a cult. Behind his carefully curated public image lies a chilling reality. A master of deception who meticulously orchestrated the ultimate trap for an innocent young woman. Everything the world once believed about him was a carefully spun illusion. But now, the horrifying secret is about to be exposed, and for Tom Cruise, the mask is finally coming off. How did this Hollywood predator manipulate the media to ensnare his prey before tragedy struck? Once the picture-perfect couple, Holmes and Cruise seemed blissfully in love, so much so that Cruise famously jumped for joy on national television, declaring, "I love her." But when did the cracks in their fairy tale begin to show? Their romance, which began in 2005, felt almost too cinematic to be real. Tom Cruise, an A-list legend with billion-dollar blockbusters to his name, crossed paths with Katie Holmes, a fresh-faced actress who had grown up watching him on screen, secretly dreaming of becoming his wife. Let's be honest, back then, Tom Cruise was every woman's crush. His dazzling looks and undeniable charm overshadowed any whispers about his controlling personality. But that captivating exterior could only conceal the truth for so long. Tragically, Holmes paid an unimaginable price for the dream she once believed in. At the time, Cruise was at the peak of his career, defying gravity in Top Gun, tackling impossible missions, and melting hearts in Jerry Maguire. He was unstoppable. Meanwhile, Holmes was still climbing. Dawson's Creek had given her recognition, but compared to Cruise, she was an outsider, sweet, innocent, and seemingly untouched by the machine that ruled Hollywood. The pairing seemed mismatched from the start, a clear warning sign to anyone paying attention. In reality, Cruise was nothing more than a seasoned predator, preying on the naive while masking his true nature behind a charming facade. But Holmes, young and enamored, failed to see the trap she had walked into. Blinded by the illusion of a fairy tale, she fell for Cruise's sweet words, completely unaware of the deception at play. And really, who could blame her? Tom Cruise wasn't just charming, he was dangerously convincing. He was calculating, dangerously intelligent. Every move methodically planned, every trap set with patience, waiting for the perfect moment to ensnare his prey. Looking back at the carefully orchestrated illusions he crafted to win Katie Holmes' heart, the sheer manipulation is staggering. Tom Cruise wielded the media like a weapon, turning stage performances into second nature. He understood the psychology of young women all too well. What could be more romantic, more intoxicating, than having the man of your dreams declare his love for you in front of the entire world? Cruise knew exactly how to exploit that fantasy. Seizing the perfect moment on the Oprah Winfrey Show, he transformed a simple question about his love life into a grand spectacle designed to sweep Holmes off her feet and take the world along with her. He leapt onto the couch, fists pumping, shouting, "I'm in love! I'm in love!" His face twisted with uncontainable excitement. The audience laughed, clapped, but beneath the surface, an uneasy energy lingered. Was this pure devotion or something far more unsettling? The moment went viral, played on repeat, dissected endlessly. A seemingly spontaneous declaration of love morphed into something almost eerie. Confusion was understandable. After all, this was one of Cruise's greatest performances. Unfortunately, Holmes, overwhelmed with happiness, failed to see it for what it was. To her, it felt like a dream come true. Holmes had admitted it before. She had been infatuated with Cruise from a young age. "When I met Tom, I was completely in love," she once said. "I admired him growing up. I felt like I was on top of the world." But admiration is not the same as love, and love is not always what it seems. From the moment they stepped into the public eye in April 2005, their whirlwind romance flipped Hollywood upside down. Cruise, 42, a man who controlled every aspect of his image, now stood beside Holmes, 26, wide-eyed and breathless. Their chemistry was undeniable, yet something about it felt off. It was too fast, too intense, too perfect. Just 2 months into their relationship, Cruise orchestrated a proposal straight out of a Hollywood script. The Eiffel Tower, midnight in Paris, a diamond ring gleaming under the city lights. The media devoured it, and the world gasped. But this wasn't a Disney fairy tale. In Disney, a princess and a prince might find their happily ever after over Nick. Forever. Or worse, Holmes may never have been able to escape Cruise's grip. Their daughter Suri was born in April 2006, entering a world of flashing cameras, relentless headlines, and endless speculation. Yet, as much as the public clamored to see her, Cruise and Holmes kept her hidden. And the more they refused, the more the rumors grew. Why the secrecy? Why the control? What was really happening behind the gilded doors of their seemingly perfect romance? The speed of their relationship? The intensity of Cruise's public displays of affection? On red carpets, they played their roles flawlessly. The devoted fiancée, the doting future wife. But every smile, every touch seemed choreographed. Cruise, ever the showman, basked in the glow of their love story, while Holmes, at times, appeared like a woman trying to convince herself of something. Everything needed to be questioned. Nothing was off limits. And that's when the most chilling truth began to emerge. Holmes had no idea that her marriage had been orchestrated by the Church of Scientology, nor that the man she loved was a devoted zealot who would later show little concern for her or their child. According to sources, Katie Holmes had been chosen and groomed for the role of Tom Cruise's wife, a revelation so disturbing that it confirmed one horrifying fact. Cruise never saw her as a person. She was merely a suitable vessel to bear his child and bolster his image. There was no love here, no fairy tale, just a carefully crafted illusion, one that Holmes had been too naive to see. And yet, as the world watched, Cruise continued to manipulate the narrative. When he and Holmes decided to marry, it wasn't just a wedding. It was a spectacle. From the moment their engagement was announced, the obsession began. Who would be invited? What would Katie wear? Would Scientology play a role? On November 18, 2006, the world finally got its answer. A castle. A guest list stacked with A-listers. At that moment, it seemed like Cruise still wanted to convince Holmes and the world that his love was real. But was it? Or was it all just another elaborate illusion? From the moment the wedding venue was selected, the ominous signs of a doomed future were impossible to ignore. Odescalchi Castle, an imposing 15th century fortress in Bracciano, Italy, loomed against the night like something out of a Gothic novel. Towering stone walls, ancient corridors, and the shimmering waters of the lake below evoked eerie echoes of Tom Cruise's role in Interview with the Vampire, or, even more fittingly, the infamous castle of Count Dracula, where 3 unfortunate brides were trapped and drained of their youth. Tragically, Katie Holmes' fate would prove just as devastating. Inside, Hollywood's elite gathered: Will and Jada Pinkett Smith, David and Victoria Beckham, Jennifer Lopez, Mark Anthony, John Travolta. Power, fame, and influence filled the air like a heady perfume. This was more than a wedding. It was a spectacle, a statement, a carefully crafted illusion of devotion and control. Katie emerged, ethereal and custom, Giorgio Armani. The fitted off-the-shoulder gown moved with ghost-like elegance, its train trailing behind her like a whisper of fate. A delicate lace-trimmed veil softened her face, but her composed, unreadable expression left lingering questions. Tom, sharp in his Armani tuxedo, stood beaming, the very image of confidence. He was a man at the peak of his power, knowing his prey had walked willingly into the trap. And now, it was only a matter of time before she realized the cost. The ceremony itself bore the unmistakable imprint of Scientology. The vows, centered around trust, integrity, and submission, were unfamiliar to most in attendance. But the whispers had started long before that night. Katie, a lifelong Catholic, had converted to Scientology. Some murmured that she had no choice. Others speculated that she had been drawn into something she couldn't escape. Was she brainwashed, blindly believing in love? Or had she been coerced, piece by piece, into surrendering everything she once held sacred? When a woman abandons her faith, her beliefs, and her identity for a man, the outcome is rarely anything but ruin. Scientology's presence at the wedding was inescapable. High-ranking church officials observed from the sidelines. their silent presence casting a shadow over the extravagant celebration. The ritualistic elements of the ceremony hinted at a commitment deeper than marriage itself. While some guests were dazzled by the grandeur, others sensed an underlying tension, something meticulously orchestrated beneath the surface. Then came the reception, a lavish feast of Italian delicacies, a night shimmering with perfection. To an untrained eye, it was pure magic, but for those looking closely, it was all too controlled. Every moment, every interaction felt calculated. The world saw a fairy tale love story, but this wasn't just a wedding, it was an initiation, a fusion of Hollywood power and the secrecy of Scientology. And for Katie Holmes, the question remained, was this the beginning of a dream or the construction of a prison? The Great Escape. Could a mother's love defeat the monster? The fairy tale unraveled in whispers, then headlines, then full-blown speculation. Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes, once Hollywood's golden couple, began to fracture under an invisible force that had been there from the start. What had once been a celebrated love story, paraded before the flashing cameras, soon revealed itself to be something far darker, entangled in secrecy, control, and the unrelenting grip of Scientology. Tom Cruise was never just a Scientologist. He was its most visible champion, its most devoted disciple. He praised it in interviews, defended it against criticism, and carried its teachings like gospel. For him, Scientology wasn't just a belief system, it was the foundation of his existence. But when he married Holmes, the line between personal devotion and something far more sinister began to blur. Holmes, raised Catholic, had reportedly converted to Scientology. But was this a genuine embrace of faith, or had she simply been swept into the powerful current of Cruise's world? A world where the church dictated more than just spirituality, but life itself. The sudden shift raised alarms. Had she willingly accepted this new reality, or had she surrendered to something she had no power to fight? Rumors spread like wildfire. Whispers emerged that Holmes's world was shrinking. Her independence was slipping away. Reports surfaced that her phone and internet were being monitored. Friends and family saw her less and less. Even her demeanor had changed. Once lively and radiant, she now appeared subdued, guarded, like a woman trapped in an invisible cage. The sparkle that had once defined her had dulled. But perhaps the most disturbing rumor of all centered around their daughter, Suri. The Church of Scientology, it was said, had a vested interest in her upbringing. Would she be raised within the confines of the church's influence? Would she become another pawn in their carefully constructed world? The love story the world had admired was disintegrating, and soon Holmes would make the most daring. Holmes remained silent. No statements, no denials, no confirmations. But in a rare interview, she offered a cryptic glimpse into her turmoil. There was a lot of attention on me, and I had to figure out what was important and what wasn't. I had to prioritize my daughter and my happiness. The words were careful, deliberate. They hinted at an internal battle few could fully comprehend. Meanwhile, Scientology denied everything. Cruise dismissed rumors of control and manipulation. The church stood firm, labeling the speculation as nothing more than sensationalist fiction. But the whispers never stopped. They only grew louder. The carefully curated illusion of their marriage had cracked beyond repair. And then, Holmes made a move no one saw coming. She left. And not just left, she escaped. Reports suggested she had planned her departure in secret, outmaneuvering both Cruise and the church with a level of precision that stunned even Hollywood's most seasoned observers. She filed for divorce in New York, a strategic choice. New York's custody laws favored her, unlike California, where Cruise could have fought for more control. She sought sole custody of Suri. She severed ties swiftly and decisively. The speed of it all was shocking. Within weeks, it was over. The settlement was swift, the details locked away. Holmes had won her freedom. The aftermath left lingering questions, ones that would never fully be answered. How deep had Scientology's control reached into their marriage? What had Holmes endured behind closed doors? And most chillingly, had she always known she would have to escape? For Cruise, the divorce was a devastating blow. His public image took a hit. His unwavering devotion to Scientology was scrutinized more than ever before. The questions about his faith, once whispered, were now shouted. But he remained steadfast, unshaken. To this day, he has never spoken in depth about what truly happened between him and Holmes. And the world watched as Holmes re-emerged, free. Slowly, deliberately, she rebuilt her life. But the specter of her past remained. The story of her marriage was no longer about love. It had become something else entirely, a cautionary tale, a chilling glimpse into the influence of one of Hollywood's most controversial organizations. And so, the whispers continue. The truth, obscured by silence and secrecy, lingers just out of reach. Katie Holmes's mission. Impossible, the great escape. The world never saw it coming. On June 29, 2012, Katie Holmes, once seen as the devoted wife of Hollywood's biggest star, executed a move so sudden, so precise, that it sent shockwaves through the industry. Without warning, she filed for divorce. 5 years of marriage, over just like that. The news exploded across headlines, not just because their relationship had appeared stable, but because of the way it happened. This was no ordinary celebrity split, no messy public fights, no drawn-out legal battles, no slow unraveling of a failing marriage. Holmes had orchestrated her escape with the precision of a master strategist. Every detail had been mapped out long before Cruise even had a clue. By the time he realized what was happening, she was already gone. Filing for divorce in New York was a crucial decision. The state's custody laws favored her. Had she filed in California, where Cruise lived, he could have maintained far greater control. But Holmes wasn't willing to take that risk. While Cruise was away filming overseas, she secured her own Manhattan apartment, far from their multi-million-dollar shared homes. She didn't just leave, she disappeared from his world, creating a fortress where she could plan her next steps without interference. Every action was deliberate, every move had purpose, and in the end, she pulled off the most shocking escape Hollywood had ever seen. Holmes wasn't asking for joint custody. She wanted full custody of Suri, no compromises, no negotiations. It was a clear, unmistakable message. She wanted complete control over her daughter's life, which meant keeping Cruise, and more importantly, the Church of Scientology, at a distance. Within just 11 days, the divorce was finalized. That kind of speed was unheard of, especially in Hollywood, where high-profile separations often drag on for months, even years. It happened faster than their entire whirlwind romance, meeting, getting engaged, and having a child all in the blink of an eye. But this time, Holmes was the one in control. Her legal team had anticipated every move, countered every possible strategy before Cruise even had time to react. It was as if she had orchestrated a prison break in broad daylight, and the guards had been too stunned to stop her. Cruise, blindsided, was left scrambling. He never saw it coming. One insider later revealed that he was devastated, shocked by Holmes's departure. He reportedly had no idea she had been so unhappy. And yet, the signs had been there all along, if only he had looked. For months, Holmes had been quietly distancing herself, laying the groundwork for an escape that would ensure she and Suri were beyond his reach. The media had a field day. Neither Holmes nor Cruise spoke openly about the details, but the theories wrote themselves. And one stood above the rest: Scientology. Cruise's deep, unshakable devotion to the controversial church had long been a point of concern. Many believed Holmes feared that Suri would be pulled into it, raised under the strict, controlling doctrines of the organization. Holmes, raised Catholic, reportedly couldn't accept that fate for her child. Scientology wasn't just a religion, it was a force. Those who left often spoke of intimidation, pressure, the inescapable grip of an institution that did not tolerate defiance. And Holmes, she had defied it in the most public way possible. She had ripped her daughter away from a world built on secrecy and obedience. The sheer speed of the divorce suggested something deeper, something urgent. Almost overnight, Holmes was hailed as a hero. The story was irresistible. A mother fighting against a powerful, controlling force to protect her child. It played out like a real-life thriller, unfolding in front of millions. Gone was the image of the timid young actress, the woman who once gazed at Cruise with wide-eyed admiration. This was a new Holmes, sharp, strategic, and unafraid. Cruise, on the other hand, found himself under a microscope. His ties to Scientology had always been scrutinized, but now the questions were more intense than ever. How much control did the church have over his life? How much influence had it wielded over his marriage? And the most chilling question, had Holmes escaped something far more sinister than just an overbearing husband? If Cruise felt betrayed, he never showed it. He maintained his public silence, appearing composed and professional. The settlement was quick and clean. Holmes won primary custody. Cruise was given generous visitation rights. No public war. No bitter court battles. Just a quiet, efficient conclusion to a marriage that had once seemed invincible. But the fallout was anything but quiet. Holmes's transformation was complete. She withdrew from the spotlight, focused on raising Suri in New York. No grand Hollywood comeback. No tell-all interviews. Just a mother and daughter living as normally as possible under extraordinary circumstances. Meanwhile, Cruise's personal life became a topic of endless speculation. Every relationship, every career move, every public appearance was dissected. Once Hollywood's golden boy, he now carried an aura of mystery, an enigma no one could quite unravel. Years passed, but the story never truly faded. It remained one of the most shocking, compelling divorces in celebrity history, a moment when the illusion of control shattered in an instant. This wasn't just about a marriage ending. It was about power. It was about escape. It was about the extraordinary lengths one woman was willing to go to protect her child. Some called it bravery. Others called it a masterclass in strategy. But one thing was certain. This was no ordinary divorce. It was an escape. Scientology first, family last. Katie Holmes vanished from the life she once knew, leaving behind the suffocating grip of Scientology and the man at its center. Meanwhile, Cruise charged forward, untouchable. Tom Cruise remains a titan in Hollywood. With each new mission, impossible installment, he reinforces his dominance, his stunts growing ever more audacious, bordering on the suicidal. He dangles from helicopters, clings to the sides of planes, and sprints across rooftops as if defying mortality itself. Fans marvel at his relentless drive. But behind the spectacle, another story unfolds. His devotion to Scientology, unyielding, absolute, casts a long shadow. To some, Cruise is the face of the church, a symbol of power and loyalty. To others, he is trapped, a man shaped by a system that dictates his every move. His connection to the organization is more than just faith, it is identity. And in that identity, there is sacrifice. The cost? His daughter, Suri. Since the divorce, Suri Cruise has been little more than a ghost in her father's world. Reports suggest he hasn't seen her in years. The reason? Scientology's controversial disconnection policy. Sever all ties with those who leave. Holmes walked away, and that meant Suri did too. Cruise has never publicly addressed the speculation, but his silence speaks volumes. While he continues to thrive, his public persona carefully curated, the absence of his daughter remains a glaring void, one that no box office success can fill. Two different paths. Katie Holmes, on the other hand, chose exile from the chaos. Her career took a quieter turn. Unlike Cruise, who remained a fixture in the blockbuster circuit, she pivoted to indie films and selective roles. One of her most personal projects, All We Had, 2016, told the story of a mother fighting to give her daughter a better life. It wasn't just a film, it was a statement. "I want my daughter to have a stable, innocent childhood," Holmes once said, and she meant it. Once paraded before the cameras as Hollywood royalty, Suri now moves through life like any other teenager. But while Holmes and Suri have forged ahead, one question lingers. How deep does Cruise's devotion run? His silence on Suri suggests a loyalty to something greater than fatherhood. Some wonder if he struggles with the choice. Others believe the decision has already been made. In Scientology, family is secondary to faith, and Cruise, their most prized disciple, follows doctrine without hesitation. A new chapter. Now, Suri is stepping into adulthood, and whispers of change are beginning to surface. Rumors swirl that she's considering a name change, distancing herself from the father who, for all his cinematic heroics, remains absent from her world. Is she ready to tell her story? And if she does, will it confirm what so many have suspected for years? The Holmes Cruise saga isn't just about a failed marriage. It's about control, escape, and the price of allegiance. Cruise, the untouchable movie star, remains cloaked in mystery. Holmes, the woman who walked away, has found peace, but not without scars. And Suri, the child at the center of it all, stands on the precipice of a truth only she can reveal. What happens next? The world is watching.